ViBE.
Yo, dude, what's up, man? How you doing?
Good.
Are you ready for the coaching lesson? Are you ready?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have some replays. I mainly, instead of replays, have questions.
Okay.
Because I just came back to the game. Like, I've been playing for about a month since I quit in 2012.
Okay.
So like a lot of stuff's new to me. And a lot of things is just I'm not sure how to deal with things.
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely. I mean, if you want, we don't even have to go into replay. We could just talk for a while, and I can explain things. But whatever you want to do, man, I'm all down. I'm all good for it.
Okay. I definitely want to go over a few replays, mainly ZvP.
Okay.
Since that's what I'm struggling with the most. But yeah, maybe just opening with some questions and just some like my background.
Sure.
So I'm Zerg in Diamond. I just hit Diamond 2 last night, but I would still consider myself like D3.
Okay.
Um, and I'm really enjoying like playing in tournaments right now. So trying to develop like maybe like one cheese, one timing attack, and then playing standard in like best of threes.
Okay. Are you talking about like
Uh,
automated tournaments or like ESL tournaments?
No, it's just like stuff on like challenge and stuff,
Okay.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
diamond level stuff like that.
Sure. That's cool.
So just trying to get better at the game like that. I definitely find like if I'm cheesing, I'm ranking up easy on ladder, but I don't want to only be able to do that.
Yeah. That's the problem with most people who do that.
Yeah, so currently like I can't beat Protoss in a macro game. Um, is one of my bigger problems. My macro also kind of sucks. Like once I hit that that mid game 3 base saturation and getting up all my gases, I feel that I start to float a lot of resources.
Okay.
But my early game and my like late game macro I think is pretty good. Um,
So the thing about Protoss a lot of times is about what comp you're going for and what your plan is in terms of timing. And I'm gonna just throw it out there and say if you do anything with Ling Bane and you're not constantly being aggressive, your build is probably not that optimal. It's too expensive to do Ling Bane and not be aggressive because that army scales horribly bad if you aren't. So I don't know how you like to play, but just throwing it out there. Like if you do rely on like let's say Ling Bane Hydra or something like that, it needs to be more aggressive based. Whereas if you do like roach styles, you can definitely take your time with those. And the reason why is because Ravager is stupidly fucking strong at dealing with like weird all-ins from Protoss in the mid game. Like
okay, yeah.
yeah.
So usually I've been going like Roach Hydra.
Okay.
Um, I guess that's just what I'm familiar with. Like, I'm still not super comfortable with all the new units, like Ravager, Lurker, Viper.
Yeah.
Um, so just kind of defaulting to what I'm used to. And ZvP used to be like, a really good matchup for me because I used to be able to macro well and not do anything else well. And I would just roach max and then just walk over them.
Okay. Yeah. That's all.
Um,
Yeah.
But now I definitely like one thing is I don't really know what my strengths and weaknesses are. Whereas like before, like I macroed really well and I just didn't do anything else.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll keep going. Keep telling me what you want.
yeah, so I was just kind of looking for, identifying my strengths and weaknesses as a player and how to improve quicker. Like one thing was like maybe a percentage breakdown of how many ladder games I should play, what like just practicing a build versus an AI or going into a custom with a friend and be like, okay, I want to practice this versus this.
Yeah, my quick opinion on those are in Diamond League. I don't think you should ever play against AI ever. And the reason why is because it teaches you bad habits. I think that if you really, really, really just want to obsess over a quota and see what you're capable of, doing it like once is fine for that. But continuously practicing against AI is not going to train you how to deal with aggression and harassment, which is what everyone's actually going to do. So I think that's a bad way to prep for real games. And then I would only recommend you play with a friend if your friend is better than you, if you want to improve. Because if your friend is worse than you, it's not going to challenge you and it's just going to make you feel good. It's not actually going to make you better, though.
Okay. Yeah, because like there's a lot of times I think the reason why I've been cheesing a lot lately is I want to practice against one matchup.
Yeah.
Like right now, I have like a nice ZvT build that I want to practice, and so if I just get a Zerg or Protoss on ladder, I just want to get the game over with so that I can practice ZvT.
Yeah, I mean, you can always as well, like, I don't know how good your friends are or how many of them play StarCraft, but if you even, like, play against someone who you feel like, that was a hard game to win, holy shit, that guy was, like, annoying, he was difficult to beat, whatever, you could even message someone like that as a practice partner afterwards. It not always, it won't generally happen that way, but sometimes they might say yes, if they also felt the same way about you and you guys both want to improve. But,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, and when we're talking Diamond League, I think just playing ladder is still just fine. And I think the randomness of it is something you have to practice for. Like, that has to become part of your, like, method. So practicing randomness with random formats, like just queuing up ladder, is the best way that's going to go, which is also why I'm not an advocator to be like, yeah, give yourself a perfect scenario with, you know, an AI, and that'll make everything feel good for you. You know, stuff like that. Like, it's just, you have to be able to do it with the fact that it has to be done, like, you might not always get the right opponent you want to get. It might be someone who, oh, finally, I got a Terran player, and I wanted to do my macro build, but yet he fucking 2-racks proxies you. And you're like, okay, well, that sucks. You have to be, like, ready for anything, essentially, is all I'm saying. If, like, for ladder, so practicing that way is probably the best way to make yourself better at ladder, because that's the format you're playing.
Okay. Yeah, so right now, kind of like the only way I'm beating Protoss is just like Ling flooding them.
You're all hitting them.
Yeah. Well, not a lot of times I'll open hatch gas pool.
Yeah, yeah.
If they build the depth first, I just go Lings and they die. And if they go Zealot first, I'll build like a good amount of Lings, see if like they break under the pressure, and I'll just drone behind it. If they don't.
How often do you go Roaches against Protoss?
Every game.
Okay, so you usually like make Lings and transition into Roaches.
Yeah, I make Lings and then transition into Roach Hydra.
Okay, that's fine. No, keep going.
Yeah, and then just really struggling with, you know, just like the generic Protoss, like Colossus Death Ball, with, you know, with the Templar for Storm, or struggling with Sky Toss because I feel like they just turtle so much.
Yeah.
And I feel like my army's not mobile enough to, you know, be hitting, you know, like, oh, I'm trying to hit their third, then trying to move over to their fourth, and they're able to rotate and kind of deal with that.
Yeah, I'll say there's two easy answers to both the things you said. Now, like, it's different in execution, but ideally they're good counters to both Skytoss and Colossus-based builds. For a Colossus-based build, Lurkers, once you get the Hive Tech upgrades, are godly against Lurkers. Without it, they're okay. Not the greatest. But if you actually get Hive Tech upgraded Lurkers, so you get the 2 upgrades on the building itself, Lurkers become so fucking good against Colossus because they outrange them and you can rotate them around really fast. And then besides that, you have for Skytoss, if you don't go Hydras anymore and instead you go for like Corruptors and you get Carapace upgrades, that is so good against Skytoss as well. And there's 2 types of Skytoss. There's a transitional Skytoss and there's a rushed Skytoss. Rushed Skytoss is probably the easiest form of Skytoss to kill. Transitional Skytoss really depends on how well you played the game up to that point, so that makes it kind of confusing to understand because it's not always going to be the same.
Okay.
Okay, keep going.
I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, it's like the thing about Protoss, once you get to a certain point in the game, like when you both can basically max out, is it's not really a game of like what unit beats what unit and, you know, like who is making the better army. It really comes down to who has the better economy and who can keep maintaining the economy better. And obviously having an army does play a part into that because you can become more efficient or less efficient, but it really comes down to who just has more money. And the more expansions you have, the better you're going to do, because you should never, ever, ever expect to beat Protoss with one army as Zerg, ever. You should always be like, well, every time I fight Protoss, I should dent your army. I should like smash a chunk of it, and then I have the ability as Zerg to remax. And if I do it again, suddenly your dented army now has to fight my new remax, and now your army gets smashed harder, and like eventually you overpower them. But you should never be like, yeah, my first army is just gonna kill Protoss. It's, you know, one fight, one and done, Zerg wins. Like, because that's not really how Zerg works versus opponents that are as good or maybe a little bit better than you.
Right. Um. Yeah. So I feel like I do try and like deny bases.
Yo, thank you,
But
Roseanne
a lot
River.
of times it's like there's just so many cannons.
Yeah.
That it's really hard for me.
Well, we can. I can look at like your build as well, and I can look at like how you set up the game and see if what you're doing is
Okay.
efficient. Because a lot of these problems too, it's not just something where I could be like, this is how you do it, and you're like, okay, cool, that's how I'm supposed to play. But suddenly, what I'm saying might not even apply to you because there is certain things in StarCraft 2 that I like to call windows of opportunity, and that window goes away if your build is not even optimal enough to set you up for it. So, like, if I were to say, like, yeah, Ling's fucking wreck, dude, but then you're, like, totally missing the beat on when Lings would even be effective there, then it, you know, then suddenly now that doesn't make sense anymore. So,
Okay.
Yeah. We'll look at
Yeah,
things like that.
Yeah, I definitely notice in kind of all my matchups, transitioning is hard for me.
Sure.
Like tech transitions. Like I think ZvZ is my best matchup, but a lot of times I die transitioning to roaches, or you know they beat me in the lurker transition, or I mess up my own lurker transition and they just like walk over and kill me.
Yeah. It happens. Honestly, I would say, like, if you could just macro well, you could literally play every single matchup, ZVT, ZVP, ZVZ, especially ZVZ. You could play all these matchups just going like Roach, Ravager every time. Like, and again, I'm not saying that, yeah, that's what we're going to teach you right now, but there's so many things you can do that if you just work on the macro and work on your build and work on the efficiency of everything and focus less on, you know, the specifics of like, oh, well, I have to do certain things here, like I have to go lurker here, and that's where I will die. That's a very technical way to play ZvZ, and I don't want to spend too much time on that, just specifically just because we're talking about ZvP right now. But yeah, I mean, again, the biggest thing, the hardest thing to understand, I think, for a player who's really jumping back into it, is the windows of opportunity aspect of it. Like, what makes sense at what time. So we'll definitely try to like help you with that, at least in ZvP for now. This is hard to teach people though, because it's it's not something I could say in like 2 minutes and suddenly you understand.
Right.
Okay, so far your build's fine. I mean, nothing too crazy is going on yet. We'll see when you take your natural. Okay, now I will say your drone's a little late. I would like your drone to go down a little bit sooner, but yeah, just so you don't get blocked.
Yeah. I think I'm just talking this game.
Sure. Yeah. That's understandable. And then you should, I was gonna say, if you're gonna go for a Ling opener, you should definitely be going for a gas before pool, ideally.
Yeah, I don't know what I do this game. Yeah, I do go gas before pool.
Okay. So always, if you're gonna go Ling opener, it makes sense to go gas before pool, always. If you don't want to go Ling opener, you don't have to go gas before pool, because you're not gonna get speed. Like, and that's actually the way I play ZvP is I actually don't get Zergling speed until like 10 minutes. But that's, it's gasless and it's a bit more intense because you have to react perfectly or else you die.
Yeah, actually, I used to like the Spanishiwa build a lot. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah,
it's just like gasless with queens and spines. I definitely like, you know, high econ styles.
Sure.
Rather than like tech. But right now I'm just finding the only thing I'm winning with a lot of times is tech and aggression.
Sure.
Because I feel like a lot of Protosses and Terrans are just really greedy.
Yeah.
And I'm finding it hard to punish.
So, I mean, we'll keep going with this game, just in general, obviously, but I'm gonna ask you a question now before we continue, and I'm gonna see what you think is important with Lings, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. So if you're gonna go Speedling opener like you did, and you took 2 drones off when you hit 100, and you're now back on, well, only 1 on gas, which is fine. Just throwing it out there too. I know, again, this could be a thing where you're typing and it's not perfect play, but just always as well, try never to like undersaturate your main, like how you did, because you ripped off like 8 drones or something, or 7 drones off of your, or 6 off of your main, and you actually undersaturated. I would say that's the reason why that's important. I'm gonna say this really quick and then we'll move on. We're not gonna spend too much time on it. When you have nothing going on in the game, you ideally want to set up 2 drones per patch on your main base, because you have nothing else to do. And if you disrupt that by oversaturating off of your main and bringing them off to your natural, you just fuck the whole disruption up, and now your efficiency is now going to be shit. Because when it gets later on in the game, in later stages, there's higher chances now of 3-to-1 drone saturations going on. Like you can see, you have one on 2 close patches right now, and you actually have 3 on a far patch, and now you're getting more drones on it. Like it's fucking bad. I can't tell you how bad it is, and the reason why is because it's all fucking game. It's all game. If it was like, oh, this is only gonna happen for like 30 seconds, you're like, okay, well, I'm a little bit inefficient for a little bit, but this is the whole game now. Like, this is now never gonna go away, and it's just gonna be there the whole time. I bet that drone that's 3 on the bottom is gonna be there the entire time, and then you do have 16 on the base again, but you have 3 drones on 2 patches, and you have or rather, sorry, you have 3 drones on 1 patch and 1 drone on 1 patch. It's just a little, like, shit like that's a little inefficient, and it makes a big deal when it is all game. So try never to disrupt that, and then we'll move on from that. That's, I feel like you understand that. Just, it's important.
Okay.
Another thing is, now I'm going to ask you a question, and it is, when, I like your first 4 lings, but now when are you going to make more lings? When do you feel comfortable to make more lings?
If I see an adept.
Okay, what if you don't see an adept?
Recently I've just been just going for it, since I've been finding they like either like when I attack the cyber and then transition to roaches, it does really well.
Sure.
Otherwise I'll just take my 3rd.
Okay, and then you'll just stay on 4 links for that if you don't see one, but you'll just like stay on the 4 basically.
Yeah, usually.
Okay. So I would say there's 2 benefits to going Speedling openers. And they are, one of them is what you're saying, which is defend if he makes adepts. And then you can be like, hey, adepts are in my base. I'm going to run you over with speedlings. Cool. Easy peasy. But, in my opinion, around like 4 minutes, which is going to be right around, like just a little bit after your ling speed's done, if you have not been attacked by an adept yet, you should just make like an extra like 10 zerglings there. It's like 5 eggs of lings. So like 10 in total. And the reason why is because the other benefit of going speedlings is you don't have to invest a ton into them, but you can be annoying as fuck to the Protoss and deny their 3rd, harass their 3rd, delay their 3rd, stuff like that. You have the ability to make their 3rd go down much later than they want. Because if a Protoss is greedy, you will shut that shit down immediately. If a Protoss is safe, he will expand a little bit later than normal. And if a Protoss is aggressive, like all in, you have the option that he's not going to take a 3rd then, because he's probably going to all in you instead. But you then have the option to counter his base with these lings. And you can then make like roaches defensively and stuff like that. Or you could even, if you really thought it was going to make sense, you could pull these lings back and use them to defend yourself. But not doing anything aggressive and then also going for speedlings, all it does, in my opinion, is it makes your build slower than what it could be. It makes your build fall like a little bit, like drops off a little bit.
Okay.
And now the other thing too is your 3rd base is super late. Super fucking late. If you're going to go for a speedling timing, or I'm not speedling timing, but if you're going to go for a speedling opening, your 3rd should be going down right about now. Like, it should be going down, like you should have a drone there right now and getting ready to take it.
Okay.
Like, you want to be taking
So, like, right when my second, or right when my natural pops?
No, like a little bit after your natural pop. But because like your queen's already like a little, just about halfway done, right around like 220 to 230 in that range of time, you want to be getting ready to take your 3rd. And the reason why is because right around the time, if you just make all your larva, like you make 4 lings, drone after that, you're going to be making your 3rd around 28 to 30 supply.
Okay.
And then
is that for all matchups also?
If you go speedling opener, yes. If your plan is to go for a speedling opener safe defensive build, yes. You should always do it in every matchup. And against Protoss specifically, you can make the extra lings to be aggressive with, because if the adept phase is not happening and you're now going to be really getting ready to deal with the mid game, which is when Protosses like to take a 3rd base, those lings would be super effective against being aggressive in the mid game. Whereas if you're against like Terran, they're really effective. You make them at the same time basically, but they're really effective to defend against like Hellion pressures in ZvT. The harass phase of Protoss is a lot less than what it is with Terran. Like with Terran, it's just like constant. With Protoss, it's really early and then it's really mid game focused. It's never constant. The only time it's ever constant is when it's Oracle based with air units or like Phoenix based. which Zerglings don't affect anything there.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, your third it's definitely super late. We'll see when you eventually do take it, but if you're gonna take, like, you're already gonna be fully saturated on your natural, and you won't even have a third that's even remotely close to being finished. So like, you're gonna have this moment where you're gonna have this economy hiccup, which is why it's so important to do this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost a minute late, I would say, because you took it right like at 39 supply, so that's pretty fucking out there. Other than that, you should be resaturating your gas in your main as soon as you're fully saturated on your natural. And right now, I'm gonna watch your gas. You're going back on 2 right now, and you have 9. And then, so the second drone. Oh, there you go. There's the third. You just built new ones and did it. I would say you resaturated your gas maybe like just slightly earlier than I would have liked, but it's not that big of a deal because you've just now saturated. So I'm not gonna really critique you too hard on that. You kind of have the idea. But now that you're fully saturated, and you have your your 2-base setup going on, and like you see this point here where your third base is so far out. There's 2 things that I don't like so far that's happening here. Number 1 is you're going for a you're not going for like a 2-base all in. So the fact that you have no creep spread right now, I dislike that a lot. The way you can fix this is if you're going to macro, if your plan is not to do a 2-base all in where it's like, I'm gonna make roaches at 34 supply and we're just gonna fucking do a crazy timing. If that's not your plan, creep tumor first at your natural instead of inject. And what that'll do is it'll give you so much more control because it'll give you creep to all your bases. It'll cover your third better. And then it'll also give you a lot more spread right away. And then your next queen you build right away as well. You should be starting another queen immediately after your first 2 are done. Start queen number 3. And then that queen can throw down like another tumor or 2 until it goes to inject your third base. And then you start another queen again after the third queen. You start another queen 1 by 1 by 1. So 2 queens at once for the first 2, and then 1 by 1 for the third and fourth. And the 4th queen just becomes a tumor boy for a while. Like, he just makes like probably 8 tumors. And you would have creep by like 6 minutes that is fully surrounding and covering all of your bases. And you'd have like probably 2 screen lengths or 3 screen lengths of creep in front of your outer bases, which is your third and natural right now, to react to any type of a timing that could hit you. Which would help you deal with prism pressure. It would help you deal with like all-ins, like straight up on the ground. It would help you deal with fucking everything, basically. It's very, like, having creep against Protoss is not as important as it is against Terran, but it's still extremely important. Just because it lets you know where to go all the time.
Okay.
Your roach run timing is fine. But, like, this is what I'm talking about. You see your natural's getting oversaturated right now? Like, this kind of shit is not good. Like, it needs to be on your third already. And your second gas is a bit early, I would say. And
yeah, I think I just take it because I notice I'm getting saturated.
Sure. So
or oversaturated, I mean.
Ideally, what you want to go for, again, this is just, we're assuming Speedling opener is going to be your way. Get your main fully saturated with 3 on the gas, then you start saturating your natural. You take 2 off the gas when you get speed. You do not put 2 back on that gas until you have a fully saturated mineral line at the natural. You then do not take gases 2 and 3 until your third base has like 10 drones on it. On the mineral line. And then you take gases 2 and 3. And then there you go. And the reason why this times out really well like this is because gases 2 and 3 will be coming like online with production of gas right around the time when your layer is done. And that's right around the time where you're going to start adding on things like upgrades or things like other tech structures. But you're not yet going to just, like, you're not already ready to be like, I'm pumping shitloads of Hydras or shitloads of Banes or whatever. You're pumping very light amount of gas units at this point because you're still in the droning phase. So you're just making enough of whatever you need to protect yourself, which might be like 10 roaches or something like that at most. But that's when your gas starts coming online, which is when you already are really rich in the minerals. And then you finish off your mineral line, all of them, and then you take your last 3 gases. And then around that time too is when you take like your 4th base. Because a quota I like to give people, this is a quota, and we'll see where you end up at it, but the quota I like to give people is you should be at 66 drones at 6 minutes, And if you're not at 66 drones at 6 minutes, your build is massively inefficient in some way, shape, or form if we're talking about Diamond League. Because what's really capable is you could be at, if you were playing greedy, okay, and like we're saying like you did something like, for instance, like a gasless opener, you could actually be at 66 drones at like 510 or like 515. And again, I'm not going to compare you to that because you're not doing that. But if we're talking about a Speedling open, so I'm just kind of trying to tell you like what is capable. Like it's fucking fast how quickly you could do that. But what's capable for like a Speedling opener, like what you're doing, you could probably get 66 drones by like 540. And like, you know, if you're doing efficient shit, if you're playing well, 535 to 540, if you're playing really, really optimal. 6 minutes is fair for Diamond. So again, we'll 6 minutes is the quota then, what I would say, and we'll see where you're at. And that's just like a good way to generalize the early game to see if you're on par or not. And then the way you could fix it is like, oh, well, things like your third base being faster. Maybe if like you're missing Larva here and there, stuff like that is how you could obviously fix this. But so far you scouted, you see a third. I'm actually going to, before we continue, I'm going to back it up really quick. And I'm going to look at the 4-minute mark if you would have made more lings and check this out. So if you would have made a few more lings, you would have, let's say, like 14 lings right now. Let's see how quickly and how greedy this Protoss tries to take a third base. He's actually not that greedy. He's being very, very cautious because he opened up early 2-gate. But now look at that third, though. Even though he has a decent amount of units, look at how he takes that third. He's just like fucking Rambo. If you had the intention of making lings for this reason, your lings would have fit. If you make lings at 4 minutes, or like 3:55, 4 minutes, something right around there, a ling's build time is only 17 seconds. You could have easily had the lings out and been on the map already. And again, you don't have to go mass lings. We're talking literally like your first 4 plus 10. So you have 14 lings out here. If you caught this Nexus right now, you would force a cancel. Or better yet, you could possibly kill it. If he's just, like, obviously it has 200 hit points to start. But if like you ran at it right now, you guaranteed would make him cancel it or he would let it die. Yeah. Obviously if he lets it die, that's like amazingly, massively beneficial for you. But most people will cancel it. But he's also afraid of the fact that you could potentially do a run by, and this is just one of those things that's a benefit for Speedling openers. It's just this is the other benefit of it. And let's see how long he doesn't defend this shit for. And he's still hesitant to do it. Like he's allowing you to have a chance to like surround this fucking Nexus or get tons of good surface area on it. Like it could have been denied, and if it was, you could have ultimately like maybe denied it once, maybe even twice, because you can also always kill the probe, which is really easy to kill. And if the probe dies, he has to pull a whole brand new one off the middle line, which is like another 10-second detour to come back to the third. But his third went down at like 428, and this third could go down, or something like 430-ish. This third could go down, though, at like 5 minutes if you deny it like once or twice. So that's a missed opportunity right there, too. And that's something that should happen, because you have to realize that going for Speedling opener, going speed early, it is something that has a deficit into your build because you're mining gas before you have... Because you can't actually spend all the minerals that you can possibly do. Like, you can't go main natural third while making non-stop drones, while then making queens. Like, you have these minor hiccups in your build if you go for gas. So using the gas to like its full extent is definitely what you want to start doing. So yeah, just reiterating the fact that for the 14 lings could definitely have been super useful here.
Okay.
I would say your Evo chamber upgrade is maybe a bit early. We're gonna pause it again and say this. I think you should not go for anything tech related on layer against Protoss until you are fully saturated on all 6 gases. And the reason why is because if this dude was doing a timing to you right now, you would probably fucking die. Like, you would be so... Like, I just see you dying right now if this dude wasn't going for a third, but instead was going for like an 8-gate Zealot all-in or something like that. Because
yeah, I think I that was another replay that I have, that I died to like a 7-gate robo timing.
Yeah, I could believe it, because if you delay, so the thing is about your gas, we talked about the gas timings of how when you get first, then second and third, and then the last 3. If you do anything that is not roach speed and then just roaches against Protoss in the early game, of like up to the point of 6 minutes when you should be fully saturated on everything. If you do anything, that is now 4 roaches that you will not have because you have a upgrade in the Evo chamber. That is also, like, let's say you take a hydrogen, that's another 4 roaches. Let's say you got burrow or overlord speed, that is another 4 roaches and another 4 roaches. Let's say you actually made a hydrogen and got a hydra like speed upgrade. You know, like this just adds up. It keeps adding up everywhere, and it's more roaches that you can't make, more roaches that you can't make, more roaches that you can't make. And if you get hit by a timing, you're gonna die. Like you're just not gonna have enough. So you should not actually add any gas expense into your build that is not roach speed or roaches themselves until you have all your gases running.
Okay.
All right, then your creep as well. I would say your creep is a little underwhelming, but now I'm gonna pause it. Look at your drone count. We're talking 50 drones right now, and my quota I give you is 66. So your build is definitely behind where it could be right now. And if we were to look at why, if we were to back this replay up and look at the larva, like right now, for instance, right now you actually have 10 larvae sitting there. That alone could put you up to the 60 mark if you just made drones right now. But we also might have a thing where it's like every single, like, just to throw this out there, a lot of Zerg, there's actually a lot of fucking Zergs who don't realize this. I think every Zerg, pretty much almost everyone who's been playing Starcraft for at least like a month or so understands, yeah, larva inject is super important because that's just larva you're missing out on if you don't inject, right? And then every time your queen has 25 energy, that's an inject. And so if my queen has like 50 or whatever, I'm missing injects. I think
yeah, you're talking about the passive larva,
yes,
right?
Yep. Yeah. It's, if you ever let larva sit here like this, every second that goes by counts for 3 if it's all your hatcheries, which it is right now. Or except your main actually does not. Your main only has 2. But you are actually not generating larva on your main or your third. Or sorry, your natural or your third, which is fucking really bad.
Yeah, like.
Go ahead.
Oh, just I was saying, like, I don't know why, but I always struggle like hitting this 3 base, starting to saturate everything. My macro always like takes like a dip. Like I don't know why. Like I guess it just like a lot of common like okay, like here's the time like I need to scout, like if you know they're taking their third, I might need to deal with aggression. It just feels like there's like a lot of things to do.
Sure.
And
check this out, okay? This is going to be easy way to read the game for you, and that'll make your life way easier, okay? So your lings, you could leave literally just like start getting the habit of like if no adepts harass you, or even if adepts harass you, whatever. Once you're past the adept phase, once you're at like the 4-minute mark and you're getting ready to make more lings now, always at the 4-minute mark, get in the habit of sending 1 Zergling to both of his possible thirds, however many there are on the map. So on this map, there's 2 of them. There's one where it is now, and the other one that's in a straight line above his natural. So have 1 Ling sitting at both of his thirds that are potential, and just sit there, and know that if he tries to take it, go attack it. If it's under 5 minutes, just try to deny it. Try to like be annoying, and if you don't deny it, I'm not telling you to be like, okay, make mass lings until you deny it. You can just attempt to deny it with the lings you have, and if you don't, fuck it. Like, who cares? Just move on.
okay.
Now, if he does not take a third by 5 minutes, and your ling is still chilling there, now you need to start being a little bit more worried. You could do 2 things. You could start getting ready to make roaches, and if you really don't know, if you have no fucking idea what's going on, you can start making a overseer to scout into his base just to see what kind of composition it's going to be. The only one you should be afraid of by any means at all is a Stargate based composition, and then that will give you your answers. Like, basically, if a Protoss does not take a third by 5 minutes, it means they're going to harass you. If they don't take a third base by 5:10, it means they're probably really going to harass you a lot. Like, it's going to be a bit more deeper on the harass department. And if they don't take a third base by 5:20, it means that they're going to all in you. Now, I don't expect everyone in Diamond League to play perfectly and follow these numbers. But just know that if they don't have a third base down by 5:20 and they're still just planning on macroing, stop. That means that they're going to... they're playing inefficient. They're just playing super inefficient. It's not actually really solid play. So I'm actually going to do one thing really fast before we continue, and that is I'm going to look at your first scout of your Overlord, and I want to see what you see. Because you can actually tell what tech Protoss is going for as well off your first scout. I want to see how
Yeah,
you
I
scout
think
this.
this game sometimes I forget to do that 4-minute scout. I don't remember if I did this game or not.
I'm gonna quiz you right now a little bit. What just like don't forget the fact that we're watching a replay. Let's just pretend you were like we were talking about a game that wasn't even your game that you just played, or that you played recently. Seeing this from Protoss,
Okay.
what do you think is possible here? Like what do you feel like is happening right now?
He's gonna throw down another gate for sure to complete the wall. And then I don't know. I would if it's 2 gates and a cyber, I would guess a depth pressure.
Okay. Now, now I have another question for you. Do you normally just scout the front of their base like this and then go over the wall like this, like how you just did?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, okay, that's kind of what I thought you would say, just because this one's unique, and I'll tell you why. But yeah, I mean, you're not wrong with what you just said. The depth pressure is a little bit of a stretch, but everything else you said, I think, is fine. I would agree with you. This game, putting your Overlord over the wall like you did, and the reason why is you saw both pylons. If you did not see both pylons, it is actually not that bad to lose your first Overlord if you find his second pylon and you find what tech he is going for. However, this game, because he has both pylons in front of his base like this, in front of the natural, he cannot. There's no way he's gonna have a third pylon right now because it's too fucking expensive. If he had a third pylon this fast, his Nexus would not be that fast. Like, or either that, or he would have made the Nexus, and then he would have cut probes to make a third pylon. Like, no one's gonna really do that. It doesn't make any fucking sense. So the fact that he has double pylon here means that if his build is efficient and he's making probe, Nexus, core, gate, all this shit, it means that those 2 pylons are it, and the fact that your Overlord scouted deep enough in to see past the pylon field, and you saw no tech, you should expect no tech to be rushed. There's other things you can scout from a Protoss, like for instance, if you were to scout, oh, he only has 1 pylon here, I'm going to go deeper into his main base. And then let's say you got into his main base, and you saw a second pylon, barely, and the Stalker killed you. And you were like, well, I just died to a fucking Stalker, but I saw the Nexus, and barely that second pylon. That tells you a lot, too. That would tell you, number 1, it's not proxied. So the chance of a proxy fucking Robo or a proxy Stargate now are completely out of the question. Number 2, if you see that main Nexus, and you see how much Chrono Boost energy he has on it, it tells you what kind of a build he's going to go for as well. Nobody is ever going to go for a tech build that is a rush tech build and also spend all their chrono. If they spend all their chrono, it means they're making probes, right? Because at this point now, Protoss could have like 3 chronos sitting there. So if he's gonna chrono like a Stargate or a Robo or a Templar Archives or like a Twilight Council is what I meant to say, like the tech structures after the core, it means that he might be teching to something like rushing to tech, because he's saving chrono energy for that, and that's what his plan is. However, if he has no chrono energy, it means, and also a really fast Nexus like this, it means he's definitely going to be macroing. So there's a lot less to be afraid of, and a lot more droning capability for you. And your Overlord could tell you all of this. It literally could tell you everything. So you have 2 ways to react to this now. If we're talking about above Diamond League, we're going to take a step really quick into like Masters, okay? Or like GM. If you actually set your Overlord in deeper, and you saw, oh, he made a Stalker first, and he also spent all of his chrono energy on probes, and my build was a Speedling opener, and now I just recently am going to be taking my probes off of, or my drones off of gas, because my Overlord got here and I saw what he was going for. You could actually put your drones back on gas and all in him if he's going to be greedy, if you wanted to. I'm not saying you have to do that, but it would make sense because he's not saving chrono boost for tech. He instead is making probes, and an all-in kills probes. Whereas if you had chrono energy on the Nexus, and you reacted to that by going, you know what, I'm going to put my drones back on gas, I'm going to go for a Roach Ling all-in. I'd be like, it doesn't make as much sense now, because now he's going to have a higher chance to defend that, because he has chrono for faster tech. So, just seeing his chrono on the Nexus tells you so much as well. This Overlord should always, in my opinion, be scouted into his base. It shouldn't always be relied on just the 4-minute scout. You should actually scout with this first one, because you will also see a lot of times what Protoss does with their tech, because a lot of Protosses will build their tech immediately after the core.
Right.
I know I talked for a bit there, but does that what we just said make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, this game, it makes sense that you left Overlord here because there's double pylon here. And that double pylon also tells you I am not getting proxied. And so does the Nexus as well. The Nexus even furthermore says it, but now you also know it's not proxy tech, like a proxy Stargate. Which is the only thing it really would be if it was a Nexus.
Because a robo is just too many minerals.
It's,
like robo
the
units.
reason why it's not going to be a proxy robo, probably, is because a robo is... Robo requires more timing, because Robo will get ran the fuck over hardcore by ground units if it doesn't have enough units to go with it. So if somebody prioritizes a Nexus, the chances of it being a Robo are a lot less common. Unless he's like going to cut probes to make just a bunch of gates, and you don't realize that, and suddenly now it's still 5-gate Robo, and you're like, oh shit, he cut probes at like 8 probes in the line. But if he's actually going to use the Nexus and make probes, the only build it could be for him to continuously make probes and have a very low gateway count would be a Stargate. Because the Stargate doesn't need the support of ground units of Gateway.
Okay.
So, at this point now, again, around the time when you see a second gate going down, I would definitely be like, okay, maybe like poke down to the edge of the pylon and look at what if you did, right? So, you have to realize too, every Protoss is going to build their tech like soon. They're never, if a Protoss ever, if a Protoss ever waits on tech for like a full minute or 2 minutes after the core, their build is garbage. That build is so inefficiently bad. No one should ever do that. And let's really quickly look at how long the Protoss waited to build his core to build his tech after the core. So finish at 213. A standard Protoss player should be building their tech about within 20 seconds after the Cybercore. And the reason why that is because usually you're not going to see Protosses build the core and then immediately build the tech. They're usually going to build a gateway unit and warp gate and then build the tech, because there is also the chance that you will just kill them with Zerglings otherwise. Like, the Protoss has to respect that you could run like 10 lings in his base and just end it right now if he doesn't actually build a fucking unit. So usually around like with this Protoss now, it should be like 2:33 would be a respectable time for his tech. And if we speed it up to that point in time, it should be going down like right now. And look at his money. He could afford it. So he could take his tech right now. But instead, what he does is he's chilling. He's letting the gas pile up. Instead of building his tech, he prioritizes a second gate and a battery. This is I wouldn't say a panicky Protoss, but this is definitely a way too safe kind of a Protoss player. Like, look at how late your Zergling speed is out, right? Your Zergling speed is not going to be done for another like 50 seconds. He could react by making this gate like as your lings would arrive, and he'd be fine. So, I mean, he's respecting the fact that you have Zerglings way too much. Like, he could have made his tech and then made the second gate later. So this is just not very optimal is all I'm saying. This dude probably, what chat's saying, he probably has PTSD from previous ling fucking floods. And he's like, I got a fucking wall. Because he should eventually, but he's doing it way too early. So his tech is super delayed. And now if I were you, after I saw that second gate, I'd be like, okay. Like, right around like 3 minutes or something, I'd be like, okay, this dude has literally a fucking second gate now. First gate, a stalker on the door. I'm not going to lose my Overlord because I know his second pylon is here, but I just want to check and see if he has tech down. Because he has to, otherwise it's so fucking late. And it's already like 30 seconds late to where it should be. So if you think about that, if he makes tech like 30 seconds late, it means every single timing he could do to you that would be threatening is 30 seconds late, 30 seconds late, 30 seconds late. And he builds his robo actually like 40 seconds late. So, again, now that's 40 seconds. Every timing he can do is 40 seconds later than it should be. So that makes you as Zerg be like, wow, I have so much breathing room. This is so much easier to deal with. Like, your tech, everything, like Stargate timings, Adept, Resident Glaive timings, Charge Lot timings, Dark Templar timings, whatever the fuck it is, all of it is super delayed. So you have this like room to breathe, to be like, you know what? I'm just gonna crank drones out even crazier now to 66, and now that's when I'd be like, if 6 minutes was my my quota for you, seeing something just like that would be, now you could be like, well, now I could be greedier. Now, just because of how late his tech is, now I have the choice. What if I don't actually want to go for the Ling flood, or like the extra Lings, because they're multi-purpose? They not only defend me, but they can also pressure him. What if now you're like, you know what? Now I just want to be really greedy and just like every second I have a larva drone, and you never waste a second on droning. You know, like it would make sense. That would be an acceptable response. The reason why I tell you to make the Lings like I do is because it's a well-rounded response versus you're not sure what's going on, but at the same time you also can punish the Nexus. It makes sense for most games, but this guy gave you like all the information right away, and you could have still even furthermore, with the most greedy aspect of it all, kept the Overlord alive while knowing everything. Late as fuck tech, and you could have found this out by poking down just for a tad and poking right back over the cliff. Overlord doesn't die, and now you know every timing he can do is super fucking late. So just know, for a respectable Protoss, for it to be threatening, and you need to respect it, 20 seconds after the core, he makes tech. If it's way later than that, which is this is 50 seconds later, or yeah, it's 50 seconds later. Because it's like 55. It's about the same. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's late as fuck is the point. If you see that, you're like, yeah, nothing is threatening here. I can totally be greedy or whatever the hell I want to do now. And again, but here's the thing too. Remember what I said about how if you would have scouted his chrono energy, and then also on top of that, you saw he was not chronoing, and then on top of that, you see his tech is so fucking late. I don't care that this guy has a shield battery. If you all in this guy, he would be so dead. He would just flat out fucking die to a Roach Ravager Zergling all in, because his tech is 55 seconds late. So these are things you should look at. This is your first Overlord can tell you so much.
Oh,
your first Overlord is so much information. And I know I'm talking a lot, and I know I just want to make sure I'm not confusing you at all. Do you have any questions about anything? Does it make sense?
No, yeah, I got everything.
Okay.
I think, yeah, it's just a lot of times I feel like, you know, just having to do a lot of things at once. Like scouting, make sure, you know, trying to check for the tech, making sure my build's good, having Overlord placement on cliffs. I just feel like it's a lot.
Sure.
And I think in the early game it's not that bad, but definitely, yeah, once I hit mid game, I just feel like there's so much to do, and I'm not. And I think that's probably why I struggle with mid game the most. Like late game, once I'm maxed, like my injects are great, my creep spread's great because I feel like there's nothing else to do.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it too comes down to when feeling like it's a lot to do. I don't think if you were to say, okay, I want you to macro and that's it. Fuck your opponent. Who cares about your opponent? Just macro. I feel like then if I told you to do that, you probably would not feel like there's so much to do, because you'd be like, well, yeah, I can macro. I could, like, if I could just, it'd be like playing against an AI, for instance. You'd be like, yeah, I don't really care what they're doing. I just want to see what I can do. I just want to test myself. If you look at the game mostly like that, and you can make fast reads of the Protoss, understanding how to just understanding what the difference is about what looks appropriate, and then or looking at it and going, I don't know what it could be anything. I don't know what it is. It could be anything. Knowing the difference of those two things will make your brain feel like it has so much less to think about. So, for instance, if I tell you his core is done, and now you have 20 seconds on the clock for him to have tech down, otherwise his build is super non-threatening and inefficient and all that stuff. If you know that to your core, if you just, it's like understanding it's like a rule of life basically, and you don't have to think about it, you just know it, okay? And if you commit that to memory, knowing that in your future games, if you just go, how late is your tech? And you go, well, that core finished at 2:13, and we're at 2:55, and he hasn't thrown tech down yet, and I saw both pylons. Don't even give a fuck. Like, at that point, I'm not telling you to freak out. I'm just telling you, at that point, if you saw both pylons and he hasn't thrown his tech down yet, the only thing that could be threatening would be like a proxy Stargate, I guess. But what I'm trying to say, though, is most of the time it could be like this guy where he's just doing shit that's inefficient, because you are in Diamond League, which is understandable. Just macro. Be like, cool, time to macro. I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care about what you're doing anymore, because I will hit 3 base fully saturated, with no cares at all, guaranteed, and then I will make an army, and I will have a bigger army than you by so much more that you'll never be able to deal with. Because you'll never be able to threaten me in a moment in the game where it actually matters. So if you just look at it like that, if you go, oh, your build's inefficient, cool, I'm going to macro up to 3 bases and then just do whatever I want. Like, that will, it'll make you feel like it's not like it's so much to do. Because you already know. Within the first 3 minutes of the game, you already know what to do for the next 3. Is my point. Like, you don't have to scout every 15 seconds or every 20 seconds. You just know for the next 3 minutes you're fine. Like, you can get away with it. Which is why it's a lot of times in my games, I'll literally call a build at like this moment in time and people are like, how do you fucking know that? And it's because of literally that fucking rule. That rule is so important. And because I just really think the less you have to think about your opponent's build, the easier the game will feel. And the less you have to think about it means the more you understand as a whole. And understanding timings is a great way to actually have a real understanding of the game. So when tech is delayed, tech is not threatening for Zerg. Oh, in a ZvP scenario.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask you one more time. How many seconds is acceptable after the core?
20.
Okay, yeah, good. And just know that it's gonna change your life. I'm not even kidding. All right, and then we'll speed it back to where you were at 6 minutes with the 6 minute stuff, with the drone count. Okay, so pause. Now, just throwing it out there, if you didn't make a hydrogen, if you didn't make an evo chamber with a +1 on it, if you didn't make roaches, you honestly, if you would have saw that robo, you could have made drones nonstop. And this could have been one of those games where you would have hit saturation super fast, and then you'd make roaches right after. But now, you're still a bit behind, and we'll continue from here. But that's just knowing that he's not threatening could mean the difference of you getting to saturation really fucking fast. Because that's the goal of the goal. Sorry, I know you're probably like trying to. Oh, never mind. Vibe's talking again. I thought he was done.
No, it's fine.
Just know this, okay? This is a golden rule of Zerg. Like, it's not Larva. That is the most important one of all, but this concept for Zerg is by far if you can accomplish this is the best thing possible. If you can get to whatever your strategy's ideal saturation of resources is, the faster you do it, the stronger your build, because you want to not be in the phase of units, drones, units, drones, units, drones. You want to be in the drones, pure units now phase. You want to get out of the droning phase as quick as possible, which means making as many as possible. So understanding how to read a build as if it's threatening or not threatening means the difference of making safety or not making safety units. And you can do things like this. I would not ever tell you this if you were not already Diamond League. But now that you're Diamond League, you can start actually understanding scouting. And if you ever can see something in someone's build where they look like they're not threatening at all, you can push like the gas pedal harder in the droning phase and get out of there faster. Because if they're way too safe or they're way too slow and inefficient, they can't punish you for being greedier than normal. And I would actually rather you lose a few games because you over-droned and died than play way too safe every time and not understand that you could get away with being greedier. Because if the more that you actually play greedy, the more you'll understand what you can actually get away with, and things will start to make more sense over time. And because again, all I'm trying to really say is again, we're 23 seconds after what I said your quota was, and you're still at 55. And we'll let it keep going, but we'll see how long it takes you to get to 66, and that's just 66. If you actually have the intention of saturating your 4th, it's even worse. Because if you're not going to max out on 3 bases and you're gonna actually drone up to like 70 or 80, your build is way too safe.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely I'm not hitting my my drone timings because I don't know. There's just a lot of times I feel like, oh, I'm scared of this, I'm scared of that.
And that's where that first overlord comes in, honestly.
Okay.
So you hit 65 drones at 7:05 exactly, and so you're like 1 minute and 5 seconds late, and you're still also down by 1 drone. I think more are gonna pop out here in a second. You have 67 now. So yeah, like you're about a full minute late on your saturation, and then now you're going into hydras and you're making static D. So I would say, ideally, I would not recommend you make static D at this point in time either. And the reason why is because there's only 2 builds I would say are acceptable to make static D against, and we're talking specifically about spores. And there's only 1 build that I would say is okay to make spores against, and we're specifically talking about spines. Now, follow me for a second. I'm gonna try to not make this sound confusing, but try to stick with me and listen to this. You can tell what build a Protoss is gonna do based off of what tech they build first after the Cybercore. So, if you saw a Robo when you did 3 minutes, it would make literally no sense to make spine crawlers, because a spine crawler is, I would say, only acceptable if you're at this point in the game right now when you're still defending yourself with Roach Hydra. It's not acceptable to make it because the only build it's acceptable against is DTs. And if he opens Robo, it's not DTs. If he opens Twilight Council, that could be DTs. If you see Twilight Council and then a little bit later you see now we made a Robo too and he made a Warp Prism, yeah, that could be DTs. It doesn't have to be. It could be Adepts, it could be Charge Lots, but it could also be DTs. If you see gas, double gas at his natural, which your Overlord could have sat at, and if you would have saw a Council first and then quickly after double gas at his natural, you see no units at all being made out of the Warp Gates except for like 1 Stalker. And now you see a Warp Prism. I'd be like, holy fuck, that's probably DTs. Signs point to DT for that one. But if you see like a lot of units at his doorway, like you see like 4 sentries or something like that, or like 8 stalkers, again, not DTs. It's not DTs. So,
Okay.
like, Council builds first. Anyone who goes Council first, and this is why the first overload is so important. Council first means anything off the Council or anything Templar based. So DTs, Blink Stalker all in, Charge Lot all in, Adept, Resident Englaive timing, stuff like that. If you see a Stargate first, that is the most macro version of Protoss out of all of them. Stargate first does not mean anything in terms of like he's going to make a lot or a little bit of gates. They can do whatever they want from that point. They don't have to do anything. It just means they're going to make something out of the Stargate, which is self-sufficient. Stargate is always self-sufficient as an opener. It does not need support. It could be Oracle, it could be Phoenix, it could be Void Ray. Void Ray is probably the most all-in version of it all, or like it's either the most all-in version or the most like sky-tossy version of it all. It's very committed one way or the other. But the point is Stargate is isolated, so Stargate does mean he can still macro with it. So it's still up in the air. If he goes Robo first, now you should be expecting builds that are like Colossus based. So you should be expecting builds that could be Disruptor based. You should be expecting builds that could be Immortal based. If you go Robo first, you're actually going to use the Robo for the real units of the Robo. If you go Robo second, you're going to use it for a Prism. And knowing that is a big deal, because now you making Spores and Spines makes no sense right now, and it's another thing that further puts you behind. So if we're talking about how you were already 1 minute behind, you're further behind now because you're making static D before you can afford it.
Okay. What benchmarks would you say for like how much supply you should be ahead of the Protoss at like different points in the game?
It depends what you're going, and because you're going Roaches and Hydras, you should be probably like 30% or 40% above the Protoss. So like,
okay,
if the Protoss is at 100, you should be like at like 130 to 140. If the Protoss is like 120, you should be like probably 160 to 175 or some shit like that. Like you should definitely be a big chunk of supply ahead of them. The fact that you're only 17 supply ahead right now is not great. And again, that's because of inefficiencies, because you're taking, like your gas still is not being mined yet at 714. You're taking static D. Your third was late in the first place. You made too many Roaches, I would say, defensively for what you're up against, which is a turtley Protoss and a super delayed Protoss with tech. All this kind of stuff. And now on top of everything else, if you scouted him again, here's another thing too. Here's a tip. If you saw Robo first, right? I'm gonna ask you a question now. I'm gonna quiz you on what we just talked about. If you saw Robo first, what does that mean again?
Immortals, probably. Or if they're also expanding with it, I would say
now
like
when I see
3-base
Stargate,
Colossus.
I know that stuff is going to be still up in the air.
If they're going for Robo first and you go Immortals or whatever, What do you think makes sense for Immortals? And if you don't know, I'll tell you, but I just want to ask you and see if you know, or see how you feel about it. What do you think makes sense for those Immortals?
Lings.
No, sorry. What I meant
Uh,
to say. What I meant to say was, how is he gonna use them? So talk about the Protoss side of things.
oh, he's gonna all in.
Exactly. Perfect. Yep. He's gonna all in you. Now we're at 7 minutes, and he hasn't attacked you yet. Would you still consider this a valid Immortal all in timing?
No. Or like I saw his third, so I'm not really concerned about
Perfect.
mortals anymore.
Exactly. Perfect. If you see the third, that's a perfect indicator. Yeah. No, it's not going to be it's not an all in. It's a third base. So it's the chance of him just going mass Immortals is lower now. And he still could, but again, if you're wrong and he goes Immortals defensively, who gives a shit? Like Immortals are still good units no matter what, but for them to be threatening to you, the only thing you should care about, the threatening aspect of it, is if they all in you with it. And if they do, it would probably hit you right around 5 to 6 minutes, like between that window of time. So the fact that we're talking it's 7 minutes already, it's gone. The fact of you being able to die to Immortals is kind of gone now, for an all-in aspect of it. And now, if the Protoss is sitting there defensively, and he's taking a third base and he opened Robo, this is a tip that you should just understand and you should always think about. There's a high chance, if they're going to sit there defensively, that they don't have to go Immortals anymore. They could go to the next evolution of whatever Robo is, which is the Robo Bay, and they could be going Disruptors or Colossus now. Because if they're going to miss the whole window of an Immortal timing, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to just go Immortals. Because Immortals are units that do better off of aggression. They do better when they can throttle the Zerg. So Immortals pair well better with builds that do some type of pressure. They don't do well with builds where you just sit there all day and you just wait and wait and wait and wait and then eventually attack when you're maxed out. That's more of like a, that's more of like a fucking Colossus style where you just wait on it and shit like that. So you should be kind of expecting Colossus now. Is my point. He's open Robo and he's just sitting there for up until 7 minutes now. Still, I'd be like, yeah, Colossus are a high chance. Another thing that reinforces that he's going to probably go Colossus is that he's going sentries, and the way you can tell he's going sentries without even seeing them is what he's doing to your base. Yeah, you know he's got Phoenixes in your base, constantly going around your base. So you know he's got sentries, and you never want to... If you ever have defensive sentries, it makes no sense again for Immortals. So now, even furthermore, it reinforces that he's going to go Colossus. So I would say, just because of the sentries, it makes sense that it's going to be Colossus and not Disruptor. It's very unlikely that a Protoss is going to go Sentry Disruptor. It's way more common that they're going to go Sentry Colossus. And the reason why is because Sentry Disruptor is so fucking hard to do together. No one in Diamond League is going to really be able to even execute that properly. It's very unrealistic. Yeah, like it's just, it doesn't synergize as well anyways as Colossus does with Sentry. If you go Disruptor, it's more about, you would want to have like Archons or something else instead for your gas instead of sentries. So, yeah, because again, think about it like this: a simple concept of why that makes sense. If you just make mass Lings and he goes Colossus, well, Colossus shit on you. But if he goes Disruptors and you go mass Lings, well, suddenly that could be kind of scary. So if he supplements the missing Colossus with now Archons can actually kill Lings again. So it's stuff like that makes it make sense. And the Lings for you going mass Lings is a very threatening thing Zerg can do. So that's why.
What unicomps would you recommend in ZvP?
Well, okay, so you could literally go Roach Hydra every time. I don't mind that you do that. The fact that you're going Roach Hydra is fine. But I would say or go ahead.
If I see the Robo Bay or I see the first Colossus, should I be throwing down a Spire?
You can.
Like immediately?
You if you want to do it that way, you can. But that requires more multitasking on your part to make it effective. I would say an easy way to respond to this for you would be just make a Lurker Den. Because you're already committed into Roach Hydra anyways, and this like synergizes well with Roach Hydra. And all you would do is you would make like 12, you would rush to a hive now, go Lurkers, and then make like 12 Lurkers. And if you ever fought Colossus Sentry with Lurker, you're going to be like, wow, this is a joke. This is so easy. Like, it's actually ridiculous how hard of a counter Lurkers are to Colossus. When you have
with that army,
hive tech.
With like Lurker versus Colossus, would I be trying to like expand with them, like, you know, securing new bases with my Lurkers, or like
you always want to expand.
pressuring him?
You want to like definitely make sure your economy is always flowing. You don't want to just put yourself into an all-in. That should always be an aspect of how you play. if you're not actually going to all in. But what you should do is once you have control, and the way you can deem if you have control is because you have creep spread, you have a maxed out army, you have good coverage of bases, you're not starving for a new expansion. All that shit's good to go. You can now start shoving him with your lurkers, and a great way to set that up safely is with overseers and dropping changelings. You can literally run like 4 or 5 changelings in different lines across the map, and you can just see not only where he is, but where it's safe to walk. So you don't just get blindsided in the fog of war, and you're like, oh, fuck. So you're like, oh, I have a changeling walking this way. I'm going to follow it like a screen length behind it so I can always have a setup. And then you shove his base with lurkers. It's literally like the Zerg form of siege tanks. Because lurkers outrange Colossus with those upgrades. And then now you are at you're at 72 drones, so you are actually going to that drone count that I'm talking about, but you're not there yet either. And you're going too long into roach, or like units, drones, units, drones, units, drones. So I would say this, okay, to hopefully make this not confusing. This game, because of how delayed he was with all of his shit, you could have droned all the way to your ideal drone count and then made units. Which could have been, like, honestly, like 80 drones. I'm not even kidding. You probably could have gotten away with that. Like, you would have been fine. However, if you don't know for sure their tech is super delayed and they look more of like a standard player, you could drone to like 80 drones. The second you see a third base, you will probably have already made safety roaches, just in case. But the second you see a third, that is an indicator that goes, yep, I can drone my ass to 4 bases. Easy. That third base of him is a massive indicator for you to know if you're okay or not to do that. And the fact that you still haven't done it yet is, it's just the same thing about your 66 drones at 6 minutes thing. You're falling off really hard in the mid game about how fast you can saturate, which is why you're still at 821 at 154 supply. At 821, if you droned the way we're talking about, you could be like at 190 supply right now, or like close to max, with all the tech you have.
Okay.
So your droning is probably your biggest problem. Because again, your macro is actually fine. I don't think your macro is actually that bad. For Diamond League, it's very appropriate for Diamond League. The only thing I could notice is like a couple times we've paused the game here and you have a fuckload of larvae sitting at your hatcheries, but your injects are on point. Your injects seem fine. Your creep spread is kind of weak. Your creep spread, it could use some work too. But yeah, like, just get down those drone timings a little bit more efficiently, and you would have so much more success though in general. The creep is not actually as important as the droning thing, but they're both important. But yeah, the droning one's more important. And then right now, right around this time, when you're ready to actually move out, would be the time I would say it would be appropriate to actually make static D. So this is when I would say, yeah, like you know, you should have known it wasn't a Stargate opener, so there's no reason to make a spore. And then there's no reason to have a spine either. But now that you're maxed out,
I think I was afraid of DTs.
No, exactly. No, what I'm saying is, I think you were too at that point in time, but it made no sense, right? If we talked about how to scout with your first Overlord.
Right, and that who went Robo first.
Exactly. So there's no chance of DTs if he goes Robo first. Otherwise, the build would be super inefficient, and you could literally just make an Overseer and counter that. By the time it would hit you, you'd be fine. And once you know DTs are on the map, you could always make static D then. But that comes from the first scout to know, because of how early you took it. But what I'm going to say now is, once you get to the ideal drone count and you also max out, I now would be okay if you make static D no matter what. No matter what tech he has gone for, you could now make static D once you max around like 9 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever. And you can make like Spore Spine, Spore Spine, Spore Spine in every single mineral line, just in case he goes DTs at some point. That'd be okay. And the reason why it would be okay then is because it does not disrupt your max out. Also, you make it at a time when you have great saturation, and you can easily replace that in like 1 second. You make 10 static D structures and immediately make 10 drones because you're working with way more resources now than you were 5 minutes ago or 4 minutes ago.
At what point do you want to punish like Protoss expanding? Like, do you like never want to let them have their fourth? Or
You want to do it when you max out, I would say.
okay.
And your max out, in my opinion, is a bit late because you're still within like a 30 to 40 supply range of him at this point now. And if we're talking 30 to 40% over him, you should have like you should have been maxed out when he should have been like at 130 or something like that. Or like something around there. Like his supply is a bit high now for you to deal with. And the other thing that's a problem right now is that you have no response to Colossus. You only have Roach Hydra. The fact that you're pushing into Colossus now when you should have known that they exist through the means we talked about earlier. If you have lurkers here, you actually could break this. This would be okay if you had lurkers. If you have Hive Tech lurkers, you 100% could break this. But the fact that you don't have lurkers here and it's just Roach Hydra, your army actually scales like absolute shit. Like essentially, the way to describe this is your supply, if it's worth 198 and it's a strong 198, that's what it's worth. That's what it says. But his supply, based off his composition and his tech, his supply would actually be worth like 230 right now, compared to what you have. Like his army should crush yours. And if you also fight with a wall in your way and you actually take the fight, suddenly now his supply is not worth 230. It's worth like 250. Like in terms of the power of what it will seem like you're fighting against. So you've kind of, again, this is that moment where I would say you've missed the window to a punish. And again, like I said, I didn't mind if you would have made static D, and now you can see he is making DTs, which is totally fine. If you actually make static D when you max, you would have it down now, and you would be able to handle these DTs no problem, if they roam your bases.
Okay.
But again, just don't do it early if he's not opening DT. That's the big one I'm trying to get across.
Alright, got it.
And now you are going Lurker, I like it, but do you have a Hive at all on the way? You have a Hive, you are going Lurker tech upgrades, that's very good. Let's watch how you take this fight. Okay, so you should never try to shove, ever. You should always let him come to you before you have Hive tech upgrades. Never, ever, ever shove before Hive tech upgrades. So the fact that you're not, the second he's on creep and you're not already burrowing and backing up and waiting for him to approach you is already a mistake. You do not want to run in front of your lurkers, nor do you want to run your lurkers forward. You want to burrow your lurkers and wait for him to engage your lurkers and then cover your lurkers.
Okay.
So this
and
charge
then
forward,
just if he rotates, then I would like unburrow and then
rotate
try
yourself.
to catch where he rotates.
Yep.
Okay.
Because you can run faster than he can when you're on creep like this, like a lot faster. You'll be fine. Like if you went up and around that cliff and he went straight through the doorway, not only would that doorway slow him down because he would walk through a doorway which makes everything funnel into it, but you could easily get there in time to cut him off.
Okay.
But if he re-engages you, you should burrow. But yeah, like the fact that you shoved into him and then burrowed, that's where you take a, like you basically, if you shove into him and then burrow, you take like 2 full volleys of auto attacks from him before you actually start attacking backwards, back at him. Like, so you just eat all this fucking damage for free. So that before the fight even starts, you can see your army supply has already dipped a bit, and the front line of your army as well is all pumpkin-y now. It's all orange and yellow and shit. Like, it's just rough.
Oh, also, what should I be doing against Storm? Like when I'm going Roach Hydra, do I just
same thing as
sit
Colossus.
in it?
The same thing as Colossus. Just let your lurkers zone it. Your lurkers can outrange
Okay.
Storm and Colossus if you just let them do it. But the fact that you charged into his ass is definitely a mistake. Like you should literally use your lurkers as like the siege that initiates, and the second he initiates and there's like that moment where he's about to start hitting your lurkers, that's when you should be using your roaches and hydras to like be like that last line of defense, like just before he gets to the lurker. But you should never ram him first with roaches and hydras and then let your lurkers be way in the back. And if you do it like this, instead of you getting hit like 2 times for free and then the fight starts, it's going to be the reverse. He's going to run through lurker cleaves and get hit like a couple times for free because everything's going to be getting fucking splashed. And then you take the fight when his units are all yellowy, pumpkin-y. So like you're going to be the one who just pops units off like crazy because they're already going to be low.
Okay.
Yeah, you just rushed into that one too fast. And even though you did, you can see how good lurkers are because you took that fight about, like, it wasn't as worst as it could have gone, but it was definitely not great. You took a fuckload of damage before the fight started. but you still actually killed all of his gateway units except for those 2 Archons. And then his Colossus were in the back, so they didn't die. Because they were barely getting hit by anything lurker-wise. Like, they were far enough away. Like, essentially, if you think about it like this, your lurkers did not have range there, so they, for number 1, they're already not outranging the Colossus in that regard anyways, until they have the high-tech upgrade.
Which upgrade should you be going for first?
Either
for
one. Doesn't matter. It does not matter. They both have their merits. Either one is fine. I don't care. Like, one of them would be like, it's easier to hold them defensively because you have more range, so it's easier just to sit there. And the other one would make it easier because you can relocate faster if he keeps trying to go left and right and left and right. They're both fine. They both have merits to why they're good. So I don't care which one you start first. Just get them both. Because you don't actually want to take fights against him if you can force it until you have both.
Okay.
So think about it like in a way where you sent your Roach Hydra in front of your Lurker, which allowed his Colossus to stay way in the back, because if his Colossus are hitting you at max range, it means they're not even, the Colossus are actually out of range of the Lurker entirely, like well out there. So his Colossus are just freely swiping at your fucking your Roaches. Which is not a good way to engage that fight, is what I'm trying to say. Definitely group your shit up a bit more. And now here, a great way to micro this. We'll talk about this briefly. We're kind of running out of time here, but I'll start speeding up a little bit. A great way to micro this one would be, he has no sentries. He has nothing except for Zealots and Archons. Or sorry, Zealots and Colossus. Burrow your Lurkers. Just burrow them. Don't run them in again. Just burrow them. And kite backwards away from the Colossus and bleed out his Zealots. Because if you
then I would just transfer the drones.
You could leave the drones there, honestly. If you actually would have... You have enough roaches here. You actually do have enough roaches here. If you would have just kited your roaches, you would have eliminated a lot of the DPS of the Colossus. And then on top of that, if the Colossus all get caught up, like 4 Colossus hitting 1 Lurker at a time, he's all of his AoE damage is getting wasted. Because these roaches could actually win this entire fight by themselves. If you just kited the Zealots and then pushed the Colossus, you would have killed him. But believe it or not, these Zealots are actually doing more DPS than the Colossus are if you just stand there.
Okay.
So you're letting the Zealots beat the shit out of you right here, and then yeah, doesn't need to happen that way because you have roach speed and you're on creep, so you could easily kite them.
I think this
so he backs up.
this game goes like more this same. So yeah, if we're running out of time, I just have some other like non-questions related to this game.
Sure, go for it.
Also, I don't really know a good unit comp for Zerg vs Zerg. Usually I'll just open like Speedlings into Roaches, but still a lot of times get killed on the transition of Roaches.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, going Roach Ravager and really pumping that, or quick transition to Lurkers.
Roach Ravager, honestly. If you're going Lurkers, you're kind of like, you're trying to go way too technical for a simple problem. I guarantee the reason why you're having a problem with ZVZ is honestly the same thing I'm talking about with your ZVP. Your timings and your windows of everything you're doing are delayed, which means your macro is a bit off. As like your injects are fine, your creep spread is bad, like could use some work. Your overall uptime, like everything build up wise, could use some work. Like you definitely missed that quota a lot by over a fucking minute. It was like 115. I guarantee the same thing's happening in your ZVZ. ZVZ could be one as simple as getting a nice drone count really fast and then going Roach Ravager, and then suddenly in Diamond League, you're the one with like 200 supply versus your opponent having 150. And the reason why that works is because nobody plays efficient in Diamond League. It still is that way. I guarantee. Like whatever anything harass based is mixed in, everybody plays inefficiently as fuck. Like they really do. So if you just understand, if you start really working on your scouting comprehension about what you see, and like you should be able to think about it like this, okay? This will make it. I want this to make sense like this in an easy way. If you look at your opponent and you go, "Cool, it took me 5 seconds to understand that, or less, and now I can move on with my build." You have good scouting comprehension. But if you look at your opponent's build and you go, "I'm not sure. It could be this. It could be that. I don't know. Could be this. They might be doing that. Could be this," and you spend 2 fucking minutes thinking about it, that needs some work, because you actually don't know what you're looking at. at that point. You should be able to analyze it like right away. And in ZvZ, all you gotta do. I'm glad that you open up Ling Bane because it helps you deal with a lot of random ass all-ins from people who just do Ling floods and shit like that. But all you gotta do in ZvZ, simply put, a really easy way to sum that matchup up. Always have a couple of Banes defensively. Always have like 2 to 4. Make like 2 Zerglings of yours. Always go scout his base about once every minute. And when you look at his base, you don't have to look at everything. All you have to look at is his mineral lines.
Yeah, sometimes like I feel like, you know, if they have their army at the front, I have a hard time scouting, you know, their drone count.
Well, then look at the army. How big is the army? And compare it to yours.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah, it's hard to see sometimes. Like, I guess I'm usually just multitasking and then, you know, like sending my Ling in, not always watching it, and then it just dies before
Sure.
I actually get to the mineral line.
Sure. Well, you should always like keep tabs on the minimap too, to be like, my Ling is gonna approach the base in like 1 second. I should look now.
Okay.
And then if you're like, wow, this guy has like 17 roaches and like 30 Lings, and he's like got a lot in front of his base, and I have 4 Banelings and 10 Lings, you're gonna get all in, obviously. Like that's like, holy fuck. Like I have a fully saturated natural and a main. There's no way he could do that too, and also have an army that big. So you know that he did the opposite of you. He made units. So you need to make fucking units or you're going to die.
Yeah.
Versus someone, you know, who, let's say you don't see his army as much, but you do see his mineral lines and you go, okay, yep, equal saturation to me. You should be able to look at it and just kind of ballpark it again. Like, yeah, it looks about the same as mine. Or, oh, no, he's actually missing a lot of drones there. Like, there's 3 drones there and I have 20 on mine. So, yeah, there's a big discrepancy of 17 larvae missing there. What is that?
And then a couple other questions. If they go Hydras and ZvZ, how do I want to deal with that, like, with my overlords? Because usually I, you know, just spread them out all around the map.
And just move them around. Just pull them back. Just get overlord speed in ZvZ always, at some point, like later on. And if they have Hydras, just pull them back. Same thing with Mutas.
Okay. And then lastly, so Terran's like the matchup I've been practicing right now, and I'm doing like a version of, you know, like the Railgun's like 3 roach opener or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm doing it hatch first, and I hit like 10 to 12 seconds later with like 5 roaches, and I'm wondering if like that's okay. Like, I did lose once to like Uncloaked Banshee.
I honestly think that build is an awful build to learn. I think that build is like, it's like a Railgun build, and it's something that Railgun likes to use. But I think teaching someone that build, I think you are going to probably need a lot of like. This is what I think. ZvT is inevitably going to become your weakest matchup if you rely on builds like that.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because it's a build that makes your opponent play like shit when they don't know what to do. But as soon as you start playing people who do know what to do, you're going to be like, wow, this is really hard. Like, you're just going to fall apart. So, you could still do it if you want to. But I
wanted to do a hatch first build, so that, like, I wasn't so hurting economically.
Do the exact same build I just taught you here in ZvP, but instead of making a Roach Ward, make a Bane Nest. And then you can go into, like, Ling Bane Hydra.
Okay.
Literally. Like, you could do the exact same opener. That's why Speedling openers are pretty universally nice, because a lot of the shit transitions over from Protoss to Terran as well. The only difference would be, instead of making only like 4 queens or so, I would want you to make like 8 queens. So you would keep making queens and maybe delay your layer a little longer, just a little bit longer, and then there you go. And then your build has a lot more creep spread. It has a lot more queen coverage to deal with lots of random shit like a BC or whatever. And then you're good to go.
Yeah, I usually pump queens versus Terran.
And then I
just kind of bad at controlling them in the mid game.
Sure. Well, the mid game, like, once you actually have an army, the queens don't matter anymore. It's just about replacing your creep whenever he scans it. But early game, you should really only be relying on queens for the point to where, like, the biggest one of them all would be he shows up with like 1 or 2 battle cruisers and he has Hellbats or some shit, and now you suddenly have to deal with that. And my recommendation to you in ZvT would be, again, do the same build here regardless, but you could make a Bane Nest versus like bio-based Terran players, But if you know he's going mech, you can make a Roach Warren just like you do against Protoss. I think a Roach Warren's actually better against mech. Roaches are fucking amazing against mech as an opener because they're cheap.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say the railgun build could be fun to throw into your mix of builds, but definitely don't make that like your standard. You're gonna fucking hate your life if you do over time.
Okay.
Just
Yeah, like I do want to have a good variety to throw at like my opponent in like best of 3s or best of 5s.
Well, the main one is it's because of this. You're gonna if you get better at aggressive builds, like builds that are basically like kind of all-in centric. Transitioning back to macro is going to feel so hard because it's going to be like you haven't trained your skill level to macro already because you've been doing all these all-in builds, like really aggressive, weird, fucking timing-based builds. And now your level of opponent that you have to macro against is not only above your skill level, but they're way above your skill level as well. So you could be like what I would say is like a 4,500 timing player, MMR-wise, but you're like a 3,600 macro player. And you're playing against like 4,500 macro players and you're trying to play a macro game there. Like you're just going to lose every time and it's going to reinforce your feeling of being like, well, fuck macro. I should just all in because I lose all the time now. Like because you never gave yourself the chance to develop as a macro player. It's going to feel so fucking hard. It's going to be very demoralizing. If you never do it. So yeah, definitely do it. I would highly recommend. And then, yeah. Yep. Yeah. But build order-wise, gas and all that shit, it's about the same, honestly. It's literally about the same. Like, saturate your natural, mineral line, retake your gas in your main, add on gases 2 and 3, around half saturation of your third, add on gases 4, 5, 6, when you have all 3 mineral lines saturated, take your fourth, then 6-minute timer again in Terran, roughly. Like, if you don't hit it, you should be close to it.
Okay. Alright, thank you.
Alright, man. And then I'm gonna timestamp this just because I want to see exactly how this ends. This probably I'm not gonna pause it anymore. I just want to see what you changed your composition into. I'll give you one final thought before we end this, so we can just because this is the sake of finishing the game here. He's going carriers, and you are going spores. At this point, you're going corruptors now with Carapace. That's good. You have a correct response to that. I don't like that Hydra. But the fact that you're going corruptors is good. I like that you're trying to kill his bases. You should be. You should definitely not try to fight that army until you have an ideal composition. If you fight it when you're like low, you're going to die. I don't mind that you lost those roaches, but I wanted you to replace them with something better. I really don't like that you're replacing with the Hydras. At this point now, I would rather you go like Zergling Corruptor. Because you want as much Corruptor as possible to overpower his air, and if you really overpower his air like that, if you're going Zergling Corruptor, you could now go Broodlord.
Okay.
Hydras are just kind of like... It just fucks your comp up a lot. Yeah, at this point now. You don't want to be going Corruptor and Hydra against Carrier. It's awful. Hydras actually are god-awful against Skythos. They're so bad. Hydras are like... I would say this. The best way to look at a Hydra and a Roach is those are transitional units. They're units that are great in the mid-game, and this is no longer the mid-game. Once you have high supreme tech, like late-game tech, mid-game phase is over. So Hydras and Roaches, you should ideally get out of those units at that point and use something better. Against Protoss. Your Broodlords and Corruptors are, you are still doing it, but like you have a very low Broodlord count. It's kind of scary. And there you go. You just got kind of overwhelmed because of that.
Well, I think all my bank is gone.
Yeah. But this is what I'm talking about too with the game of money. And imagine how much your bank would have not been gone if you just would have made Broods instead of making like the 30 Hydras you made or 40 Hydras you made. And the Roaches you made again too, throughout the mid-game. Or throughout the late game. Because ideally you want to make one max of Roach Hydra, and that's it. You don't want to be maxing again and again and again and again if you're going to rotate to something else. The only time it is ever acceptable to max out repeatedly on Roach Hydra is if you are crippling your opponent's economy over and over every time you do it. But you can see here clearly you're not crippling your opponent's economy. Like, he still has like 7 bases.
Right.
So, yeah. Roach Hydra, good for transitioning, good for getting you the initial aspect of your game, really bad for continuously remaxing on once you have already maxed, if the game is developed to a stronger stage than that. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lots of info, dude.
Thanks, ViBE.
I'm gonna make this a VOD, and then I'll post it to you on YouTube, my dude.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
All right. Take it easy, man. Have a great night.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Later, man.
All right. Bye.
All right, guys. There you go. There's a coaching lesson with Mr. Wizard. That was how do I feel about that lesson? I hope that lesson was not confusing. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about this one, personally. I feel like, what, right? Because he's Diamond. He's Diamond Lair. I feel like I was giving him a lot of info that's very relevant. But I hope it wasn't too much. I understood everything? Okay. I just, because I feel like I don't want to like overdo it and make you be like, holy fuck, like I don't know what the hell this means. Alright, anyways. Yeah, that was like the biggest one. Wizard. When you rewatch this, if you do, the biggest one, the biggest piece of information is when I tell you about how to use that first Overlord and scout Protoss. The initial tech after the opener, I can't tell you how huge that is. It makes this matchup so fucking easy if you get used to that. But guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something. Go check out more videos if you want to check out some more. There's so many more coaching lessons, replay analysis videos, and Bronze to GM series stuff if you guys want to learn more about StarCraft. But until next time, have a great night, everybody. Have a great day, and I will see you guys in the next one. Good luck. Peace out. Bye, guys. Goodbye.